Hello, everybody. Welcome to Humane Voices. And if I sound more cheerful than usual, it is because we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is food. And I always love just even saying that one of my favorite subjects is food is funny to me because it's like, hey, I have to eat food. So it should be everybody's favorite topic is food. I'm very excited. I haven't eaten anything all day, so I'm really hungry for this podcast, and I'm probably just going to go, chew on a whole bunch of chips after we talk about this. So my co-host for this episode is Kelly Pinkleton. Kelly, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here with you, Carrie, and with our guest today.
I am thrilled to have you. And why don't you tell people about that guest?
I would love to do that. And much like you, Carrie, I too love food. And there's another thing I love about our guest I'll share later. I'm really excited to introduce him. He has an extensive resume. He has been, I think, on every media outlet, including Washington Post, People Magazine, CNN, Telemundo, Travel and Leisure, National Enquirer. Not really. I just made that one up, I think. But he is a chef to the stars, so potentially we can dish about that later.
I see what you did there, Kelly. Very
nice.
Like
that, Carrie?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good.
But yeah, he's really well known in his industry, and he is also the author of 2 vegan Mexican books. And he is a colleague. He is the program manager of food nutrition at the Humane Society of the United States. He's pretty much done it all. And for the next, few minutes, hour, we're going to talk about food, hopefully the stars, and all the things that make Chef Eddie an amazing person and advocate and foodie. So Eddie, welcome so much. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting for many reasons. Number one, being able to chat with you all, but also today I'm celebrating my 8-year anniversary at the HSUS.
Oh, congratulations. Hooray. Excellent.
Crazy how those 8 years just flew by. It feels like
that is so true. Yeah. Yeah, especially in a time period when none of us have any sense of time anymore because of COVID. It's like, it feels like every year, it's really probably more like 16 years for you now. Time is stretching out and having no meaning anymore. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And of course, one of my favorite topics always is food. So let's dish.
Let's dish indeed. Okay, so as I mentioned, I love food, much like Carrie. I also love the stars. So tell us a little bit I want to hear more about that. You're chef to the stars, some big names. I'd love to hear about that work.
So it's fascinating the way that this whole thing has turned into me cooking for stars. It all really started from my television work. When I was living in Miami, I was always on the morning shows. And of course, at those types of places, you're going to run into celebrities. And a lot of them were just plant-based and were to see what I was cooking. Even if they weren't plant-based, they were just interested in learning more about it. So it turned into, meeting them at the studio and then going and cooking for them at their houses or doing collaborations. But it's really cool. One of the people I get to work with pretty often is somebody who I've respected since I was a child, Daisy Fuentes, supermodel. She was the first Latina host for MTV. She's just an all-around amazing animal advocate. She's been a supporter of the HSUS in multiple things, multiple campaigns to help end suffering of farmed animals primarily. But she's turned into a really good friend. We just published some recipes together. They're all Spanish recipes from the Spanish tortilla española, which is like an omelet.
I love tortilla española. So good. So is this a vegan version of tortilla española?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm very excited to check that out. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And April 1st is when it's gonna launch in Veg News Magazine. It's the main food feature, and there you're going to see us a picture of me and Daisy cooking some delicious food, and also just all the amazing Spanish foods that we created for this one issue.
Yum! Oh my God,
that sounds great. And and I'm thinking I could make that recipe, and to the background maybe play Richard Marx, who I believe is married to Daisy, who wrote the soundtrack to my youth. So I've got a Saturday night planned. I'm pretty excited about this.
There we go. Perfect. Oh my gosh. So Eddie, when you were working with, I don't know, with you mentioned that a lot of the sort of stars and celebs you encounter are already plant-based. I mean, how, would you say overall that you they tend to sort of come to you because they're already there, or that they see what you're doing and then it looks so delicious and then they're like, I want to be there?
It's a little each. There are people like Marco Antonio Regil, who's a household name in Mexico. He's the host for all the major game shows. He was already.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, super cool guy, already plant-based for the animals. And then there were other people who were just kind of shifting toward that way of eating, even if they weren't fully vegan or vegetarian, they were trying to eat more vegan vegetarian. So yeah, it's really cool. Some people who had done some work for, dog and cat issues had started to learn more about what was going on with farmed animals after our conversations. So they went from mostly plant-based to completely plant-based. So that's really cool.
Oh, that's neat. So, Eddie, I'm really curious about your own sort of journey with this, because I know, like, you sort of alluded to the fact that everybody kind of gets into this at different spaces. I mean, like we joke a lot that cats and dogs are sort of the gateway drug for animal welfare. But I mean, like for this, it's kind of a question, like, I don't know when you sort of became fully plant-based, or sort of what your food journey has looked like. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I've been vegan for almost 20 years, for 19 years now. And the reason that I had kind of started going that way was a number of reasons. Number one, my health was suffering. I, at one point, was very obese and unhealthy. And by eating more plant-based, I just started to naturally lose weight and get healthier. But during that journey, I was learning so much about the impact that my new diet was making on the environment. And I was learning about things that were happening to animals on factory farms. So that really sealed the deal when I finally made that decision to just say, yes, I'm vegan, because it was all the information that I had learned, specifically broiler chickens. And I really identified with broiler chickens because during my obesity, I used to sprain my ankle all the time, just walking down a crooked sidewalk. I couldn't handle my own weight. So when I looked at the crippling leg conditions that these broiler chickens have, I really identify with them. And that's the reason I'm such a big advocate for chickens, more than any others, because I really just saw myself in them. And I think that when people learn about these different issues, the way that, mother pigs are kept in gestation crates, the way that, dairy cows are, also in tight conditions and have their tails stocked without painkillers, all of these horrible things that are happening on factory farms. I think when people see those animals like they see their dogs and cats, it's a compelling argument to, ditch those products.
Yeah, they make the connection, I think. Well, and Eddie, it's, on your journey. So I think a lot of people think people transition being plant-based or vegan from the coast, Portland, San Francisco, New York, kind of those cities. That was not where your kind of journey happened. So if you can share a little bit about that too.
Yeah, it's strange. I started my cooking career in Dallas, Texas, back when
the height of vegetarianism.
Right.
That was back in 2008. And it was probably the only truly vegan restaurant in that area.
Interesting.
So it was really cool to just start my journey in Texas. But I am from a small town in South Texas. It's called Brownsville, Texas. It's considered one of the most unhealthy cities in America. And the reason is because it's right on the US-Mexico border. So you have all the worst junk food from America and all the worst junk food from Mexico, all piled up into one tiny town of people who also love food. So it was really the time that I spent working at the diner, at Spiral Diner, and cooking for essentially a land of meat eaters, and then seeing the growth of just the plant-based movement in the Dallas area in such a short amount of time. That was like crazy to see that was happening in Dallas. I remember even just a couple of years after this sort of big vegan boom was happening in Dallas, Veg News had started naming Dallas one of the most veg-friendly cities. And who would ever think that?
That's so interesting.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, I know coming from this sort of like meat-centered market like Dallas, one of the things I think is kind of interesting about how people start eating more plant-based is like, do they get drawn in through the sort of fake meat route, or do they get drawn in through other things? I mean, did you see sort of things in Dallas that that the sort of fake meats brought people in, or did you see them people just generally trying to eat more sort of raw, healthy vegetables type things?
At the very beginning, I feel like it was a mix of both. They were
Mm-hmm.
on to Spiral Diner for the fake meats, and those were absolutely delicious. It was just typical diner food. And then there was also this like raw movement that was happening also that was drawing in yogis and other people who were in the health industries.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
but I personally was drawn in with the, with the meaty alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Those were always my fun foods, the comfort foods. And I still cook a lot like that. It's still difficult to get me to eat a salad, if you would. It's still very low on my list of priorities. It's like eating a salad.
Yeah, it's kind of people often say, "Oh, you're plant-based or vegan, so you eat really healthy." I'm like, Oreos are still vegan. So.
Oreos are a plant.
And you're right. And I eat them regularly.
And they're delicious. Why not?
So, Eddie, you talked a little bit about comfort food and when you're cooking for yourself. So, is this like the son of the cobbler? Or, I mean, I know you love cooking for others and sharing your knowledge. And what's it like to cook for yourself? And what is your favorite thing to cook for yourself?
Wow. Well, we eat a lot of Caribbean food here in my house. My husband is from Nicaragua, so they eat a lot of like rice and bean type dishes with plantains. So a lot of our food that we eat here at the house is like very tropical Caribbean inspired. But at the same time, I'm from a Mexican background, so I still, make my huevos rancheros with tofu and spicy sauces. So it's funny, like it always seems to go back from Caribbean to Mexican, and very rarely will I cook something like a lasagna because, it's labor intensive. So because I'm so busy cooking for others and doing other types of, cuisines for different shows that I do, it's very simple when it comes to just eating like our own foods. But definitely lots of plantains.
When you travel, I'm going to imagine that your destinations, you often pick on the cuisine of the location. Do you ever do that? Pick destinations based on that, or do you have a certain?
I'm going to go there so I can eat this.
Right. Yes. I mean, full disclosure, I do this.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So I would imagine as a chef, you definitely do this.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, it's more so the neighborhoods that I choose to stay in versus actual cities. For my personal travel, I got to tell you, I'm such a beach bum when it comes to like my time off. And I think that all started because I grew up by the water. So I'm just used to going to the water, my happy place. I live by the water. I used to live in Miami Beach. So even now it's crazy. Like I still choose my vacation destinations wherever there's beautiful water that I can swim in. Now, when it comes to food and staying in certain neighborhoods, yeah, definitely. When I go to Mexico City for work, I always stay in a neighborhood called Roma Norte because it's so close to all the vegan restaurants.
Oh yeah, totally. There's so many good vegetarian places in that neighborhood. Oh my gosh.
Many. Yeah. But yeah, like that's the kind of thing that I would do if I'm traveling for, say, work. Then I'm going to choose a neighborhood that's going to be easy to go find some delicious food.
Now you mentioned your husband. So is he a good cook, and does he cook for you? And do you let him cook for you in your kitchen? How does that work?
We have a joke in this house. Like there's like cooking at a normal temperature and like Latino cooking, which is always on high. So he burns all the food. He's not gonna like what I said, but he's not a great cook. But
he doesn't need to be, though, frankly, Eddie. Does he? I mean,
right. Everybody brings something to the relationship, right? Like you bring what you bring, right?
He makes excellent cocktails. So there's that.
There you go. Yep.
Sure. Yeah, it's perfect. It balances out.
For sure.
So Eddie, I'm curious, like, in terms you mentioned, like you don't do sort of labor intensive stuff. Have you seen any sort of shifts during the sort of COVID times around the kinds of recipes and the kind of cooking that people are wanting to do? I mean, I personally have gone kind of back and forth around this because a lot of the times I'm just like, oh, I'm so fried that I just want to make something really easy. But then there are other times that I'm like, I want to take back some of my space and make something that's sort of epic today. And then I'll, like do like a 6-hour dish. And then, because it's become like one of the only means of entertainment, right?
Yeah. So, it's funny, like what I've noticed over the last couple of years during this period of whatever we want to call it, Walking Dead timeline. It's been incredible to see some of my friends who didn't even have more than salt and pepper in their kitchens to actually cooking with different spices and other unique ingredients. One friend of mine who has been a longtime volunteer for the HSUS, her name is Nora Kramer, who I think many of us know her or have worked with her. She is somebody who used to complain about cooking anything, and now she loves cooking. She just loves doing anything that reminds her of places that she's traveled to. So one of my favorite dishes that's a staple here is called gallo pinto. It's from Nicaragua, but if you talk to somebody from Costa Rica, they'll tell you that it's from Costa Rica. But she had gone to Costa Rica, and that's the dish that she loved the most. So she now cooks it all the time, and she's gotten quite good at it. So yeah, I've been noticing that people who just didn't want to cook are now cooking a lot more, which makes my recipes so much more interesting when I do them on TV, because I know that there is so much more experience, and that I can do a little dishes for people.
Right.
So kind of on that theme with during this time, the Walking Dead time, as you call it, do you think, we all heard about the, sourdough starter kits and people kind of expanding and baking, but I wonder if because people did have more time and they were dedicating themselves a little bit more to the kitchen, were they experimenting more towards plant-based? Do we, it'd be interesting to know, I'm sure there's no data on this, but did people make more because they thought, well, I've got the time, I'll try it now?
Yeah, I'd love to see a study on what types of things people were cooking, because for sure, people were eating things out of cans. I remember that it was really difficult to get cans of beans at one point, and you couldn't eat more than 4 cans at a time at certain stores. Same thing with tofu. That was one of the things that I found fascinating. I literally just moved from Miami to LA a few months before COVID hit. And I was in shock that like the first thing gone from my Whole Foods was the tofu. I was like, really?
Look what you did, Eddie. You made more people eat plant-based, and now there's no tofu for anyone.
Right. I was like, what just happened? Where are we? What's happening? It was insane. I remember I had one of our colleagues, Sunny Rodriguez, who's on the food and nutrition team also, shipped me some tofu from Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
There's like an underground tofu thing going on.
In Texas, of all places, that's great.
Yeah. Nice guy. Sent me like 15 cases of silken tofu. I was like, thank you so much. Now I won't go hungry.
Maybe that wasn't the COVID though, a fallout from COVID. Maybe that was just you, Eddie. Like that's your power. People are now, tofu is so in demand because of you. Can you add this on your resume, do you think?
I like it.
Single-handedly put tofu over the top. No, like exaggerated claims here or anything like that. It's cool.
Right. I'm going to add that to the next intro I do of you. I
love it. I'm going to add it to my bio.
Yeah.
I think kind of along the same theme with just the increase in demand. You really do now see plant-based everywhere. From menus to stores to, just odd, strange bedfellows, people that now have plant-based options, companies that do. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that it is an exciting time to be eating plant-based for sure.
It really is. Never would I have imagined watching the Super Bowl and seeing so many plant-based commercials. People or different organizations used to spend a lot of advertising money to get stuff like that on TV. And now you're seeing all these major companies just announcing all their plant-based innovations. Even just like using the word plant-based, it's so buzzy right now. Like who would ever thought like pistachios, using the word plant-based, what were they say that like the original plant-based protein or something like that. But everyone is touting their plant-based options, from KFC to, Del Taco, all these major companies, and, really promoting their plant-based options. It's almost a little dangerous when you travel now. You've got way too many options of all the junk food if you're trying to eat healthier. But it's great to see. It's really great to see.
You kind of see in your industry and what in terms of just the explosion of plant-based products and options, I mean, where do you see this going in the future? I mean, where do you see the growth and just the demand increasing?
I think it's just going to keep growing and growing, and the younger consumers are really driving this. I mean, the young consumers are now so in line with the way that their food is connected with other parts of their, things that are important to them, like the planet, for instance. This is only going to keep getting better for animals and better for plant-based innovations.
I think that when I hear from folks, just those that want to move more towards plant-based, the one, and I know you must hear this, the one thing that I hear is, but cheese. And of course, I explain there's so many options now. We're not left with those one waxy slices that we were, 10 years ago. So what, give us some tips and advice, certainly on the cheese aspect, recommendations, but some things that are helpful for those that are trying to cut out, maybe dairy.
Yeah, we're in a lucky time now where our cheese actually melts instead of folds, right? It's really
who would have thought?
Who would have thought? But there are so many different options out there. Some of my favorites include Miyoko's.
Yes,
those are fantastic. There's tree line cheese, which also makes some really great nut-based cheeses. But
can we talk about Roadhouse cheddar for a minute, Miyoko's? Which I'm finding, I don't know if it's COVID, there's a shortage, but that Roadhouse cheddar, and I'm not getting any kickback for this, but it is divine. And it's a Miyoko's product. So I'm thrilled that you mentioned them. I love that. A little tub of that and some wheat thins.
Oh, yeah. I'm such a fan of everything that Miyoko makes, including that vegan butter. That is so wonderful. It's truly the only plant-based butter on the market that behaves like butter. So it's cool to see that innovation. Definitely say that if you're a baker and love baking, that's the butter that you want to use. But as far as other cheeses, I mean, there are just so many. Go pick up some plant-based cheeses, try them out. They melt, they're delicious. They taste exactly the same. There are some that I'm still unable to find here in the United States, but even if you go to Mexico City, there are their own versions of Mexican cheeses. And even those companies out there, they're doing great stuff. So definitely try them out.
Eddie, this is so great. So if you had recommendations to folks who are just starting out beyond sort of exploring the world of vegan cheeses, where would you tell them to go to get sort of tips about how to get started and sort of learn more about these issues and why so many people are going plant-based?
Yeah, I think that even if you go to Whole Foods website, there's a guide to how to go plant-based, and they even give you tips on shopping lists for people who are just getting started. You're going to find a lot of resources online. Just, Google, vegetarian starter or something like that, and you're going to find a lot of resources. But just on my personal note, there are so many websites, including the Humane Society of the United States website for plant-based. There are some tips on, even if you're wanting your institution to go plant-based, there are tips on bringing our specialists in to go work with major cafeterias. We're working with some of the largest food service companies right now on plant-based innovations, including Sodexo and Aramark, all those Compass Group, all of these major companies are working with us to add more plant-based. So definitely check it out. Yeah.
Eddie, have you noticed since, not to get back to talking about the stars, but let's get back to talking about the stars and your work with them. Have you noticed an increase in demand from kind of known people? And I ask this because in this day and age, of course, the social media, when you have a celebrity or an influencer, as the young kids would call it, obviously you can reach even more folks. I remember when Oprah tweeted about going plant-based, and I want to say it was 16 million, followers she had at the time. Talk a little bit about that connection. I mean, obviously when you're cooking them, are they talking about that? Are they, sharing that? I mean, do you think that helps, I guess, the movement towards plant-based?
Definitely. In fact, I was just contacted by a New York Giants football player who is not plant-based, but he wants to eat completely plant-based for his off season. So once he makes that announcement, that's going to be really cool. I also can't say too much about this other person, but I also recently spent an entire week training the culinary staff of one of the most famous world boxing champions in the world. And his hope is to win his next big fights on a plant-based diet.
Now, Eddie, you can't just, mention that and not say names. I think we should do a big reveal on this podcast. HSUS gets the exclusive. If you whisper it to Carrie and I, just whisper
it. Yeah, no one else is listening. It's fine.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna wait till this guy makes the announcement, because I think that it's just gonna make a big splash across the entire sports industry.
If you think it's wise to wait, I don't. But go ahead, wait.
That's exciting now. I can't imagine there's a channel out there that has a larger audience than the Humane Voices podcast. I mean, how could you not want to announce it here?
Right. Sorry, Brene Brown, but we do have more listeners. Sorry. Oh, that's exciting, though, the world of boxing. I mean, we are starting to see, though, I think in the sports world, more football players, as you mentioned, with the Giants, more baseball players, but boxing. I mean, that to me is kind of like early days of veganism for you in Texas. Boxing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And it's great to see all these athletes. One of the things that I think was a real game changer was Game Changers. Documentary really opened the eyes to, a lot of athletes who want to make that, career extension, rather. It's really kind of the driving force behind, why these two athletes contacted me, is they're really trying to extend their careers by making their recovery time faster, which has been proven on a plant-based diet. And also, just feeling lighter, feeling like you're not just processing this piece of, meat in your belly, that feeling, I imagine you'd be much quicker and everything,
right. So tell us then, if you give us the name of a star that you have not cooked for that would be your dream. It's kind of the, who do you want to have for dinner? Who do you want to cook for? Who's your dream star to cook for?
And by have for dinner, we do not mean you want to eat the star. Just
right.
To be clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we be clear about that?
Dinner. Yeah.
That's a different podcast.
It's so funny. I generally don't get, starstruck. Mm-hmm. However, I would get starstruck by any of the RuPaul's Drag Race queens.
Oh, awesome.
It's so funny. So if I were to have a celebrity I would love to cook for, it would be RuPaul.
Okay, I was going to say, forget the contestants. It would be RuPaul, right?
It would definitely be RuPaul.
All right. We have to figure out how to make that dream come true. That would be amazing.
Yeah. How to make it happen. And then I think we need to film it, because that would be a nice reality show. You can put that on your YouTube channel. That would be great.
That would be a lot of fun. I'd be willing to put on a wig too.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Eddie, we've kind of danced around this a little bit. People enter into plant-based in a lot of different ways, for the environment, for animals, for their health, because it's the cool thing to do. It's what the stars are doing. But I think, there's some people feel pressure, like they have to be all in, all or nothing. And that is absolutely not the case. And I know that's not what we talk about at HSUS. So maybe talk a little bit about that. I know there's a Meatless Monday program, but how do folks lean in? I mean, how can they make a really big difference with small steps?
Yeah. So when I first started with the HSUS, one of the big programs that we were promoting was Meatless Monday. We had worked with school districts on implementing a sort of Meatless Monday, either an option or having them go completely meatless on Mondays. And it's a really easy thing to do, because one day out of the week, it really is not that big a deal. You take a break from meat in favor of healthier options. But there's also another program called Vegan Before 6, where people essentially eat vegan up until 6 p.m. and then they eat something not vegan. But that's another great way to lean into it. There's also another program called 80-20 Plants, where it's 80% of your diet is plant-based and then 20% is not. And it's a way to just kind of introduce people into, a plant-based lifestyle. I found that when I first started making that transition, I was doing a meatless Monday, then it was kind of a meatless Monday, Wednesday, then Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I added more days until ultimately I was plant-based the whole week. And it was so easy to do. It took me probably close to 5 years from the time that I started eating more plants to eating all plants and then actually claiming my veganism. So it's really great to just not put pressure on yourself to lean in, explore different flavors. You're going to find that the more plant-based you eat, the better you're going to feel. And it's funny, even now, I'm reminded about things like there's just so much flavor in plant-based foods that this boxer that I was working with said I'd forgotten how delicious food can be because we're so used to eating such a very boring diet of like boiled chicken and egg whites to actually eating flavorful foods. So try it. You're just going to love it.
I think that's a great point though, Eddie, because it's not just for all of, which are great reasons, animals, the environment, health, but it also can be fun because you're rediscovering maybe vegetables. You're, looking at a new way with food. And for anyone that loves food, I mean, we're always looking for, that next big thing or that exciting thing. So I like that idea too, that it's kind of an adventure folks can go on, whether they're doing it on Mondays or before 6. I think and it's the philosophy of just telling folks baby steps. We all can make really big impacts with just small steps that start with what's on your plate.
Absolutely.
And you've been game changer for that. I mean, to show people, it's one thing to say, let's do this, but then to show people, here's how you do it. I'll show you how to cook this. It's not difficult. We can do this.
Exactly. Yep. We can do it. It's good for, you're just going to find that you're going to feel so great making a really good choice for the animals and a good choice for the planet. And then to boot, you're just going to feel so physically great. So,
yeah. So what would you cook for RuPaul? I'm curious. What would the dish be? What's the meal?
I'd probably make a delicious chile relleno, which is a simple dish from Mexico, just to really impress. I would use just egg to batter it, and it's just going to be the best dish he'll ever have.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Yep.
Love
I'm
it.
hungry. Officially hungry.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yep. Haven't eaten, need to go eat something. That's going to happen now. So yeah.
I just need Eddie here to cook it for me.
Right.
That's what I need.
Eddie will be there in 20 minutes. Sorry.
I'm a lazy vegan.
Eddie, Kelly, this has been fantastic. Eddie Garza, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Signing off for Humane Voices, and we will see you all next time. Go out, see what you can find about Meatless Monday, about all the other ways that you can eat more plant-based. You'll be happy you did, and we'll see you next time on the show. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.